Hello, welcome back. We're going to continue our journey through Exodus. Today, the title of our story is Manna, Quail, and Water. God loved the Israelites and their leader Moses. God promised to bring the people to a place where they could build homes and live happily. They had never lived outside of Egypt before and they were afraid. But God went with them as they walked long and far to the place God promised. Traveling was hard and tiring. Along the way, the people became hungry. They complained to Moses. "I am so hungry," one boy cried. "I wish I could go back to Egypt," whined a little girl. "At least we had food to eat there." Her stomach growled. The people missed their dinners of meat and bread. The Israelites didn't know that God heard them complaining. That evening, something strange happened. Tiny birds called quails appeared everywhere. God had sent the quails so the people could eat meat. The next morning, the ground glistened with fresh dew. Even after the sun dried up the dew, there was still something covering the ground. It looked like bread had rained down from heaven. It was manna. The manna looked like tiny seeds and tasted like bread. The people ate and ate. Every day, God sent manna and quails so that the people had food to eat. The Israelites kept traveling toward the place God promised. After a while, they ran out of water. Even though God had given them food when they were hungry, the people still complained. "My mouth feels dry like a desert," sobbed a child. The people were thirsty. This time, God told Moses to hit a rock with his staff. When he did, water gushed out of the rock. The people had more than enough to drink. God gave food and water to the Israelites every day. God took care of the people, just like God promised. Now, our thought for this week is, what are some things you need that God provides to you? This might be something you can talk about with your siblings, your parents, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great week.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Miss Kelly and this is Oliver and Jane. And we are talking about the story Manna, Quail, and Water. Oliver, can you remind me what the story was about?
It was about Moses and the Israelites.
Yep.
And they were walking from Egypt, but they were hungry and thirsty. So God sent water and food.
That's right. Moses was leading the Israelites out of Egypt, but traveling was really hard, and they were hungry and thirsty. And God heard their cries and sent quails for meat and manna from heaven, which is something you might hear. What's manna? Do you know what that is? It's kind of an interesting word. It's another,
Mayonnaise?
No, it's another word for bread. And then Moses hit his staff against a rock, and it had water. So God provided. And so, what are some things that you need that God provides for you?
Everything on here.
Did we make collages?
Most importantly, a dog.
One thing we did, can I hold yours? One thing we did is we made collages following the story to show things that we need that God provides. And all you need is scissors, a glue stick, a piece of paper, and magazines. And you can cut out pictures, like Oliver, you cut out a dog.
The most important thing you need in life is a dog.
The most important thing you need in life is a dog. Maybe that is a symbol of love. God can provide love.
Yes.
And what else do you have on here? You have a lot of dessert.
Trees.
Pizza.
Trees, because you need to breathe.
Trees, because you need to breathe. You have food. Lots of food, particularly cakes and cookies. So you can cut things out and put it onto the paper and make a collage of the things that God provides. So what do you have, Jane? What did you put on yours?
A cupcake!
A cupcake? What kind of cupcake? That's a monster cupcake. And you also have fruits and vegetables, right? Healthy foods too. So if you don't have things to cut out and you just have a piece of paper, you can draw things and draw what God gives you that you need, right?
Yeah.
And then there's just a reminder that they're collecting food for people who might be hungry, and we can help and drop food off at the church, at the bins outside of door 3, right? Remember?
Can we drop off a dog?
I don't know. That might be hard to do. But this is a craft that you can do following the story. So we hope that you guys have some fun with it and you're able to put something together. And we'll see you soon, hopefully.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm happy to see you guys again. So, last week when we talked, Do you remember there was a burning bush? Do you remember who was the man that was standing in front of the burning bush? That it caught his attention, so he wandered over. It was Moses. Who was talking to him from the bush? God. God asked Moses to do something. He asked him, go back to Egypt and tell Pharaoh to set the Israelites free, right? God told Moses he would help him to free the Israelites. Well, in today's verse, the Israelites are free, right? I think we missed something. So let's backtrack. So we know that Moses went back to Egypt and was able to get an audience with Pharaoh and said, let my people go. Now, do you think, did the Pharaoh say yes right away or no? Do you remember this from Sunday school when you guys were really little? Do you remember? He said no. So then God brought 10 plagues to the Egyptians. It didn't have to be 10. The Pharaoh's behavior chose that. But let's see, now the first, do you guys remember what the first plague was? So Moses took his staff and he touched it to the Nile River. Because remember, all around Egypt was desert, except where the Nile River was. And that's where Moses, when he was a baby, was put in a basket. So the Nile River brought life for the crops and water to drink. So anyway, I'm digressing. Let's go back. So Moses put his staff into the Nile River. Do you remember what the water turned to? Blood. And even in all the Egyptian homes, they didn't have sinks and running water, so they would keep like clay, big clay containers of water. That turned to blood. That's pretty scary. Moses went back to Pharaoh and said, set my people free. What do you think Pharaoh said? No. The next one, the next plague was frogs. And that doesn't sound terrible, right? I want you to imagine laying in your bed, and when you wake up, there's frogs on top of your bed. There's frogs on the floor. There's frogs in the hallway and in the bathroom and all over your house, sidewalks, streets. So it was not pleasant. There were frogs everywhere. Moses went back to Pharaoh, and guess what? Pharaoh didn't set him free. The next plague was gnats. So lots of teeny little flies. Have you ever been outside maybe around dusk and there's just those little bugs everywhere? It was like that, but they were everywhere. But that didn't change Pharaoh. The next plague was biting flies. Now that just sounds painful to me. Pharaoh didn't change. Next, all the livestock, so like their cows and sheep, all of that died. Pharaoh didn't change his mind. When Moses asked, set my people free, Pharaoh said no. Next was boils. And I hope you never experience a boil. I've never experienced one, but it's like huge blisters that are really, really painful. Do you think that changed Pharaoh's mind? Nope. Next came hail. So huge drops of rain that were actually ice. And when that came down, it ruined all the crops. They were all laying on the ground. They'd all pretty much died, right? And it hurt people too. Do you think that changed Pharaoh's mind? Because that was the seventh. That was the seventh plague. Do you think that changed his mind? Nope. Next came locusts, which are we'll say grasshoppers. But so many grasshoppers that the crops had fallen down, but the people, the Egyptians, didn't get to harvest because the locusts came and ate everything. That wasn't enough for Pharaoh. Next came darkness. So imagine, just close your eyes. That's what it looked like outside all day long. It was pitch black. That is not normal. That had to have been so scary to them. Did that change Pharaoh's mind? Nope. The last plague is a really scary one. All the firstborn sons for the Egyptians, even some of the animals, all the firstborn died. And that affected Pharaoh. His son died. Then Pharaoh changed his mind. And when Moses said, "Set my people free," Pharaoh said yes. So Moses and all the Israelites fled. They left. Guess who changed his mind? Pharaoh. He decided he wanted his slaves back. So if you can imagine, all these people are walking, all the Israelites are walking, and in front of them is a huge body of water, the Red Sea. You can see it on a map today. Behind them, the Egyptians are coming. So the people are trapped. But God provided for them. God told Moses to take that staff and raise it, and he did. And guess what happened? Do you guys remember this? Is this familiar? The Red Sea parted, and they were able to walk through on dry land, and the Egyptians followed them. So the Israelites got across to the far side, and they were safe, and all of the Egyptian soldiers were on that dry land in the Red Sea, and Moses lowered his staff. The water came down, and the Egyptian army was no more, and the Israelites were safe. God provided for them. So then they started walking. And that's where we are now in the book of Exodus. So it was chapter 16, verses 1 through 18, and chapter 17, verses 1 through 7. So we'll start with chapter 16 first. So we know that they are traveling, moving towards Mount Sinai, which is familiar. That's where the burning bush was. That's where God told Moses he would lead the people to. So they're heading that way. Do you know how long they've been traveling? It tells us that they were traveling, and it was the 15th day of the second month. So that just means they'd been walking for a month and a half. And that's a long time. Are they happy? They are complaining and grumbling. They're even saying it was better to be back in Egypt as a slave because they knew they had food to eat and that they were going to starve out here. You know what they really were? Scared. When we're scared, sometimes, especially for those families with their children, and we're scared they wouldn't have enough food, and where were they going to go? And it was just so scary to them. So they complained. Who do you think they complained to? Who led them? Who seemed to be in charge? Moses. So they were complaining to Moses. And I'm going to read from, so I'm in Exodus chapter 16. This is verse 4. The Lord said to Moses, "I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are going to go out each day and gather enough for that day. In this way, I will test them and see that they follow my instructions. And on the 6th day, they are to prepare what they bring in, and that's to be twice as much on the 6th day." So God had a plan. Interesting, though, that the people had to trust God each day to give them just enough. So why on the 6th day, because there's 7 days in a week, why on the 6th day were they supposed to get twice as much? Any ideas? Remember, the 7th day is the Sabbath. That's the holy day that they weren't supposed to do any work. So God still had a way for them to have enough food. On the 6th day, he let them get twice as much. So on the 7th day, they'd have food. So he had a plan for them. God heard them and he helped. So guess what? At twilight, do you know what time of the day is twilight? It's at the end of the day when it starts to get dark out. quail came down and landed. Small chickens. So small chickens came down, so there was meat for everyone to eat. And have you ever gone out in the morning and when you walk through the grass, your feet get wet? Yeah, that's dew. It's just moisture. And as the sun comes up and as it gets warmer, it evaporates. Well, what God told them was in the morning where there's the dew, when it evaporates, there's going to be manna. And it's just little pieces of flakes of bread that they are to collect. And everyone was supposed to go out and collect just as much as they needed for that day. And that's what God provided. So families with more children collected more. Smaller families collected less, and there was enough. So at night there was quail, and in the morning there was manna. So God heard the Israelites grumbling. They were scared, they were complaining, and he helped them. Now we're going to jump to chapter 17. And then the Israelites are complaining again. They've moved to a different place. And they're complaining. Do you remember why? There's no water. And that's actually a really scary thing, is our bodies need water. So I'm sure the families and the parents are really scared for their children. And when they're scared, they complain. Now, God provided manna and quail. God heard them and helped them. Who do you think the people complained to this time? Do you think they had a conversation with God in prayer? They complained to Moses again. So, God helped Moses come up with a plan. God told Moses to take some of the elders, some of the older Israelites, outside of the camp where there were some stones. And that staff that parted the Red Sea, God told him, do you remember what he told him to do? Hit it on the rocks. And he did, and there was water. So but Moses made sure people understood it wasn't Moses that did this miracle, it was God. God supplied what they needed. And the elders saw this, and hopefully they could tell everyone that God provided. So if you actually think about it, God helped the Israelites in so many ways. He helped them leave Egypt, right? He provided someone, Moses, that would help them leave. He provided the 10 plagues. Unfortunately, he had to change Pharaoh's mind so Pharaoh would let the people go. And then when Pharaoh changed his mind and chased them, he provided a way for them to escape and get away from their enemies. And then when they're wandering in the desert with no food, he provided food. And then when they had no water, he provided water. And the whole time, he's providing them a way to go, a path towards Mount Sinai. He took care of them, just like God takes care of us. We don't always see it, right? God maybe puts people in our lives that help us. Or maybe there's different, the way our days go, different things that happen to us. God helps us. He will never forget you, even when it feels like he might have. And I bet you those Israelites felt forgotten when they were hungry and then thirsty. God does not forget us. God loves us. God knows every one of us. So we're going to close in prayer this week. So get comfy. God, thank you for this week. Thank you for the Bible. Thank you for all of the ways that you teach us how much you love us and how you will never forget us. Even if it feels like it, just in the moment, you have a plan for every one of us. Thank you for providing for us and loving us and taking care of us. And please keep us safe this week so we can get together next week. Well, with the video. Amen. All right, guys. See you next week. Bye.